In the opening months of 2025, the American energy sector was rocked by a dramatic policy shift that sent shockwaves through the industry and beyond. The federal government announced a sweeping new tariff, targeting a critical resource at the heart of the nation's power supply. This policy imposed a 10% tax on all uranium imported from Canada, the United States' largest and most dependable uranium supplier. The move was sudden, and its implications were immediately felt across both sides of the border. According to administration officials, the goal was clear: to revitalize domestic uranium mining, strengthen national security, and spark an economic revival in struggling mining communities. The government argued that relying on foreign uranium, even from a close ally, left the nation vulnerable to supply disruptions and geopolitical risks. The tariff was designed to reduce America's dependency on imported uranium and to create thousands of new jobs in the mining sector. Supporters envisioned a new era of American energy independence, with revitalized towns and a stronger domestic industry. Yet, energy analysts quickly raised red flags. They pointed out that the global uranium supply chain is intricate and deeply interconnected, with raw materials, processing, and expertise flowing across borders. Disrupting this balance, they warned, could have unintended consequences for the entire energy ecosystem. The new policy, while bold, was seen by many as a short-term solution to a long-term challenge. Experts cautioned that it risked destabilizing the delicate equilibrium required to keep the nation's power grid running smoothly, potentially leading to higher costs and supply shortages. The announcement ignited fierce debate across the country. Supporters hailed the tariff as a decisive step toward true energy independence, rallying around the promise of new jobs and a stronger America. Critics, however, warned that the move could spark chaos in energy markets and drive up electricity prices for consumers. There were also fears that the tariff could strain the long-standing partnership between the US and Canada, undermining decades of cooperation and potentially weakening North America's overall energy security. Tensions rose as both sides weighed the risks and rewards of the new policy. As the dust settled, one thing was clear: the stage was set for a major energy dispute with far-reaching consequences for both nations and the future of the continent's power supply. The U.S. nuclear industry is a cornerstone of the nation's energy grid, quietly generating about 20% of all electricity consumed across the country. These nuclear plants operate around the clock, providing a steady, reliable source of power that millions of Americans depend on every day. But behind this impressive output lies a critical dependency that often goes unnoticed. The industry's ability to keep the lights on is heavily reliant on uranium sourced from outside U.S. borders. Domestic uranium production has dwindled over the years, making foreign imports essential for fueling American reactors. Among all suppliers, Canada stands out as the largest and most trusted partner, providing a remarkable 27% of the uranium used in U.S. nuclear reactors. Canadian uranium is prized for its high quality and the reliability of its delivery. This long-standing trade relationship between the two countries has fostered stability and predictability, allowing American utilities to plan for the future with confidence. However, recent tariff proposals threaten to upend this efficient supply chain, introducing uncertainty and delays that could ripple throughout the entire energy sector. The reality is that U.S. energy security is deeply intertwined with its relationship with Canada. The two nations have built a complex web of energy links, from shared power grids to joint investments in infrastructure. Any disruption in this partnership could have severe consequences. Finding new, reliable uranium suppliers is not a simple task, as the global market is limited and competition is fierce. The proposed tariff effectively placed a tax on the very foundation of the U.S. nuclear power industry, threatening to increase costs for utilities and ultimately for consumers. As a result, utility companies across the country faced unexpected cost increases and mounting pressure, exposing a critical vulnerability in America's energy supply chain that few had anticipated. The market reacted with lightning speed to the announcement of the new tariff, sending shockwaves through the financial world. Traders scrambled to adjust their positions, and news of the policy change spread rapidly across trading floors and financial news outlets. Almost immediately, uranium prices soared, driven by a surge of fear and uncertainty. Investors, unsure of how the market would settle, rushed to buy up available supplies, causing a dramatic spike in commodity prices that left many industry veterans stunned. Utility companies, already operating on razor-thin margins and facing strict regulatory oversight, responded by freezing all new fuel contracts. Executives gathered in urgent meetings, weighing the risks of entering into new agreements amid such volatility. The sudden tariff upended their long-term procurement strategies, forcing them to halt negotiations and cancel planned purchases. This abrupt pause in fuel procurement created a dangerous gap in their supply chains, threatening the stability of their operations. Nuclear power plants depend on a steady, uninterrupted supply of fuel to operate safely and efficiently. Any delay or disruption in securing that fuel could quickly escalate into shortages, putting both energy production and public safety at risk. Instead of providing relief, the tariff introduced a wave of paralysis and anxiety throughout the industry. Decision-makers found themselves caught between rising costs and the fear of making the wrong move in an unpredictable market. This instability laid bare the underlying fragility of the nuclear energy sector, revealing just how vulnerable it is to sudden policy shifts and market shocks. Financial analysts quickly sounded the alarm, warning that such volatility could scare off much-needed investment in new nuclear projects, potentially stalling the sector's growth for years to come. The tariff aimed to boost U.S. uranium mining, but the domestic industry was unprepared. By 2025, U.S. mines produced less than 5% of the country's uranium needs. Reviving the industry required massive investment and time. Opening new mines involves years of exploration and regulatory approvals. The U.S. lacked the infrastructure to process uranium ore. The tariff created a vacuum that domestic production couldn't fill. American utility companies faced rising import costs without a domestic alternative. Policymakers misunderstood the complexities of the industry. Canada responded to the tariff with quiet, strategic diplomacy, carefully avoiding a public confrontation or escalation. They emphasized the long history of cooperation and mutual energy security between the two nations. Canadian officials highlighted the deeply interconnected power grids and closely linked economies. Their message was about preserving the overall health and stability of the entire continental energy market. Canada presented itself as a reliable partner, not a victim, urging the U.S. to reconsider its position. This careful strategy allowed space for American policymakers to reverse the policy without losing face or credibility. The tariff failed to stimulate the U.S. uranium industry. Analysts warned it was a flawed tool for addressing deep structural problems. The tariff functioned as a tax on American businesses, not a stimulus. Utility companies absorbed the extra cost with no domestic alternative. Rising fuel costs would eventually lead to higher electricity rates for consumers. The tariff highlighted the need for a comprehensive strategy to rebuild the industry. It required long-term investment, regulatory streamlining, and infrastructure development. The U.S. administration eventually lifted the tariff, acknowledging its failure. The move stabilized the market and underscored the importance of partnerships. The episode revealed that energy security relies on cooperation, not isolation. The tariff forced a national conversation about energy security in the 21st century. True security comes from resilient supply chains and reliable international partners. The crisis demonstrated that confrontation is a poor substitute for cooperation. America's strength lies in working with allies to achieve shared goals of prosperity and security.